Everybody wants to skip a Flash Wolves because famous organization, famous name, strong players. People who will outplay one of the best players in the world.
Faker's pushback, a double kill for Edo. Flash Wolves have done it again. And SKT relegated. Oh my God, Maple!
And it's Flash Wolves improved to 3 and 4 and takes down the best team in the world.
You don't really wanna play versus them.
说到对 Gambit 的了解的话，我觉得就是他们比较以前的时候，在 M5 的时候吧，那时候都会看他们比赛。这次我觉得蛮幸运可以跟他们对上，然后希望可以跟之前的偶像来对决。
Kira somehow gets the Elder Dragon, and that should be game.
Elation and redemption for Gambit Esports.
Not making anything on the world stage for like a couple of years, it's depressing. I definitely wanna at least get to the group stage with the big teams.
他们的赛区的话，我觉得他们打法看起来都是蛮激进的，然后我觉得这也蛮不错，可以跟我们就是来一个比较血腥的对战吧。在这次 MSI 的话，我希望我跟我队友是打得更加激进一点，让大家看到一个更不一样的闪亮的队伍。
Second day of play-in knockouts. We will soon find out our final competitor in the MSI group stage as Gambit Esports and the Flash Wolves battle it out for that last spot in hopefully an epic best of 5. I'm Efe Supporter, joined by Aiden Zyrene Moon and Barento Raz Mohammed. Bittersweet. It's the last time, but it also means that we'll get our final team in the plains, from the plains into the group stage, so that'll be good.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see who's going to be joining the major team. So let's get the show going.
I love the video also. Yesterday it was a bit of trash talk here and there, and this time it was mutual respect. Mutual respect, looking up to each other and looking forward to the matchup. So it was a different vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this one, especially since the fact that these teams, I think they're a little bit more even than people think.
Ah, okay, well, we'll get into that in a bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts. First up, though, let's take a look at the schedule. Yesterday, EVOS Esports, they took out Supermassive 3-1 and advanced to the group stage. And today, Gambit Esports and Flash Wolves look to join them.
Yeah, and something else that needs to be considered is if Flash Wolves win, that means that EVOS Esports earns the VCS a spot in the group stage at Worlds.
Yeah, they already did Vietnam very, very proud by making it to the group stage, but that would be a huge, huge extra for them. Well, today, we have a matchup that, according to Zyrene, is a bit closer because yesterday it wasn't as close. Even though people thought Supermassive would clean sweep EVOS, the Vietnamese team came out swinging.
I wonder who thought that, really? I don't know. 3-0.
Only we had it on video or something.
It just came down to the fact that not a lot of people knew what the Vietnamese squad was going to be presenting. EVOS came in hot. A lot of the players were fantastic to see. And then it was a few players underperforming on the Supermassive side. It was a great match to watch.
Yeah, but once again, the Vietnamese team underestimated. It's happened now 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
That's people have underestimated them. So I feel like this is the last time that we actually do that.
I don't think so. I mean, they just play their game, but they play it so well and so aggressive that Supermassive didn't have an answer. And we got to talk about some individuals. Yijin in the jungle. Fantastic. The second coming of Levi, maybe even better. Who knows? He was crushing it.
I mean, this guy's 17 years old. He came out here. He smashed. And I love this because so many times as a jungler, I watch teams and I'm like, the jungler is playing for the lanes, right? Here in Vietnam, they're playing around the jungler. They're enabling him. The plus 40, plus 62 CSD at 15, that's insane. He's getting his second blue buff. They're giving him buffs. He's taking lane CS. He walks up and like takes cannon minions in front of his laners. And then when they have this roaming damage source, it means he can go win whatever lane he wants to instead of being a tank that shows up.
Almost single-handedly won the last game. Not that the team wasn't playing well. Yijin was just like, I'm going to do this on my graves and nobody's going to stop me.
He was so damn man fed that he was finding opportunities that no one would see him. He didn't have Kha'Zix. They were getting his Kha'Zix out, so he's going to play Graves like a Kha'Zix, and every bush, you couldn't find him.
No, mid lane, also something that surprised us. Warzone versus GBM, they had some choice words for each other, and Warzone didn't have the best international record before this game, but this was a bit of a redemption for him.
Yeah, the fact that he had come in, I believe, 0-7 internationally, and he just won 3 games, so improving that record to 3 and 8.
Really good first record.
He did do a fantastic job, though, because GBM is no slouch.
He was just purely confident. Like, getting into it, he talked smack just before the matchup, talking smack about his lane opponent, his GBM. You're talking about him because he had an excellent run-in and play-ins thus far. And then he performs, and then, of course, comes back and just talks up Vietnam. So I love the fact that this player can come back into the international stage and then come back so confident and perform.
And he's kind of been equated to like a double lift or even a Gilius, somebody who kind of trash talks a lot. So having him make it to the group stage, I'm really excited to see what he does for the Vietnam region in terms of upping those stakes for everyone.
Taking nothing away from Warzone, but GBM did play with his chances a little bit too much, and I think as a whole, Supermassive underperformed. However, there was a ray of sunshine in Snowflower, their support. He at least got to show off his famous thresh just to be able to say, I'm helping. Let's take a look, brought to you by State Farm.
Now they're waiting for level 2 on Ron OP so that he can go in.
Headbutt pulverize. There it is. Yujin on the backside. He's going to move into the middle of the team. Ooh, Guardian does it. Oh! Snowflower! What a predict! He says, you got your comfort pick, I got mine.
Yeah, this TP from GBM that makes everybody pull off. I love just the way they play defensively, and that hook. Oh, man. Snowflower finally gets the thresh.
The eternal discussion between was it on purpose or was it luck? I'm going to say Snowflower knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, I think so, because he was right up against the wall. Good thresh players know that when somebody's walking past one of those walls, whether it's mid lane or in the bottom lane, that's when you throw the hook, because they can't dodge to the left or up. They have to dodge towards you, which makes them take more damage, or they dodge to the right, which then means that you're eating the hook.
The best thing about it is that that wasn't the only play that he was performing in. The Lulu pick, he was fantastic on. Double kill on the top side of the map was what we remember very truly. The Tom Kench also. So Snowflower, that series was a boss.
He was fantastic, and I love to see how Supermassive will evolve after this. Unfortunate that they are knocked out, but it is Evos that goes on to the play-in to the MSI group stage. There's a lot of stages, come on, let's be fair. But this is the knockout stage of the Plains, and we'll see the Flash Wolves up versus Gambit. And let's talk a bit about the Flash Wolves. They are back at MSI, and when it comes to the LMS, they've dominated there for several years, and this year was no exception. Their spotless record in the regular season is 3-0 in the finals, but the team is looking different coming into this year and coming into MSI.
Yeah, they did it without Kai'Sa, they did it without MMD and Stake. Of course, two of those members going to China. So they brought in new members and new, I guess, new insight in how they want to play the game.
Yeah, and I think it's actually hurt them a bit because they ran through 8 different players during the regular season, and losing Stake actually hurt their vision control a lot. So I feel like the Flash Wolves are a bit of a shell of their former selves. They're still dominating the region, though, because the region as a whole actually got weaker. Their top 4 teams, Flash Wolves was the only one that made the top. The other 3 dropped to the bottom half of the standings, so it kind of got all topsy-turvy, where there's only really 1.5 good teams in the LMS, and Flash Wolves are one of them, but I don't think they're as strong as they were before.
Which, again, makes it so difficult to predict how they will play. Much like with Evos yesterday, you don't really know. And on the other side, the Flash Wolves have watched Gambit now for an entire playing group stage, so they know a bit more. So let's take a look at those competitors. At Gambit, they found themselves at MSI after also a dominating performance in the LCL in their region, and also here at the Plains. They've had a great run so far, again with a reconfigured roster.
And it all started in the last week of the LCL regular season where they brought in Lodik, the rookie, coming in. They weren't too confident in blasting, and they had a phenomenal player because not only did he get comfortable during the playoffs, he brought that play into the play-in stage, and it felt like all 5 players were really confident about that bottom lane setup.
And whenever there's a rookie coming in onto the international stage, I always have to ask the question, is it just beginner's luck? Because you can only get so far being like, hey, I'm the rookie, I have nothing to lose, and every match that we win is actually something where there's no pressure on you. You could lose it and nobody's going to criticize you, right? Now you're in this place where you're in this best of 5 on the international stage, and the stakes just get higher from here. So I want to see what Lodik's able to do, or if he's going to default to the veterans.
And especially since SwordArt and Betty are are the core that remain in that bottom lane and very experienced on the side of Flash Wolves. We'll see what Edward and Lodik can do. And when we talk about players that remain and the mixture of both veteran players and new blood on both teams, we talk about experience and possibly the discrepancy in experience between the two. Now, here we tallied up the years of professional play experience among all players on both sides, and we do see some interesting differences, especially in the top side of the map.
It's funny because when Diamondprox was on the desk, Jeff Dasher's third day appearance, he talked about the 3 generation of players from him and Edward towards, of course, PVPStejos and Kira, and then the new blood in the bottom side of the map. It's the same when it comes to Flash Wolves as well.
Yeah, and what I'm really looking at here is just the difference in where the disparities are, because that top side of the map, PVPStejos used to be a jungler, and he moved to top lane so that Diamondprox could fill in on the team.
Yeah.
So when you have 2 people who know how to play jungle and exploit a lane, up against these guys who are inexperienced on the top half with Moojin and Hanabi, that's where I'm looking for Gambit to potentially make some moves. But then, like you said, there's that inexperience in the bottom lane of Lodik that does have to be a big question mark.
True, and also in the mid lane, we see it's relatively similar between Kira and Maple, but I would say that Maple just has played on higher international levels for the times that he has been there, and I'm very interested to see what that lane matchup is going to look like, Maple and Kira, because these are 2 guys that have a very different style. And this guy, he took down FLICKR before. He's an assassin master. He's no slouch.
Yeah, because he goes onto the international stage and he performs time and time again, and both of them are kings within their own region in the mid lane, so that's fun to see. What I don't know what's going to be coming because both of these players have such weird styles, not weird styles, but differing styles.
And like LeBlanc is back in the meta, so Maple could potentially play some assassins, and then Kira, he's already shown us his control mages, the Anivia that gets banned against him constantly, and then the Karthus, the lasers from above. I want to see these compositions come out and see what happens in mid lane.
I'm very excited to see if Kira is going to stick to the control mage style, if he has something up his sleeve, because we've seen that Gambit isn't afraid to be creative, and we also saw that you said with the Karthus Nocturne composition, Diamondprox pulling out the Nocturne, and then when we take a look at that jungle matchup, there again is a big difference in experience. The rookie of Moojin versus Diamond, and Diamond has a wealth of experience, but I feel like this is a performance to be proud of in contrast to what we've seen at Worlds last year.
Yeah, he went 0-4 in the World's group stages in 2017, or the play-in stage, and a lot of criticism was levied towards him. I think that he underperformed. He performed pretty terribly, and people were saying the Diamondprox of old is dead, and he's never coming back. The guy you remember no longer exists. But now, the 5-1 out of the play-in stage, Diamond was a huge carry for them in multiple games. This is the redemption. This is the resurrection of Diamondprox. And if he's able to take down Moojin today and really take it to a rookie, that's when he solidifies himself as Diamond is back.
And that's the thing, is that he did it a lot with his mid laner, with Edward. He wasn't alone in a lot of the plays that he was making with the Nocturne pick and the Trundle pick. So I want to see what he can do versus Moojin. Moojin, who, of course, is trying to fill the shoes of Kai'Sa. That had a lot of strong synergy points with Maple. And that has not been as strong during the LMS regular season. So I hope to see that if Moojin can actually form that relationship with him, and definitely SwordArt if they want to contest that bottom lane.
Yeah, pressure on both squads to bring pride to the LMS and pride to the LCL and see what they can do. I'm hearing a lot of good things from both squads, but I'm also hearing a lot of uncertainty, again, about the relative level of the Flash Wolves. So who do you peg to win this one, and why?
Right now, I think that the Flash Wolves are a stronger team than Gambit. I think that they would easily be able to take this, but I am actually predicting Gambit 3-2 because I think that what Gambit's been doing, and they've been preparing over and over again for a very long time, and they said that was the difference maker. When they came into Worlds, it was the lack of preparation. So now I think they've actually prepared a lot. They have a lot of strategies that are hidden, and I think they'll be able to take 3 games off of the Flash Wolves with an unconventional fashion.
And here's the thing, I agree with you on the strategical aspect. The fact that Gambit are going to come out with some Gouda, they're going to have something prepared.
Delicious.
But the question is whether or not Flash Wolves are going to be able to adapt. I think that's going to be the case. That's why I have Gambit taking 1 game, but Flash Wolves are going to take the rest.
Hold up. That means we take the exact opposite of what Raz says.
Oh, no!
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
Brought to you by Supermassive 3-0.
Hold on. Lol. But I'm just saying right now, the point still stands. It's going to be on Gambit to prove me wrong.
I'm just playing with you. It's the last day, so we got to have some fun. I think it's going to be 3-2 because I always vote for the 5 games
For
just
who?
for the show, for fun, for the Flash Wolves. I don't know, but logically they should be a bit stronger, right? If we look at the regions, but who the hell knows? We'll see. The one thing I hope is that we see a lot of big plays, a lot of interesting plays, and we also want you guys to send in everything that caught your eye on the Rift throughout the knockout stage, every big play, using the hashtag MSI2018, and we're going to check them all out after our last game. So that'll be it from us here in the Analyst Desk and the intro. We've talked enough. We want to meet the casters, and we definitely want to meet the teams. Take it away.
I haven't talked enough. I still got words to say. What are you talking about? Shocks.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Shocks and Aiden. I'm Julian Pastry Time Card, joined by Jake Spawn Tiberi and Andrew PVPStejos. Gentlemen, so glad to have you.
It's good to be here.
A wonderful joy to cast for the first time with Jake, Spawn, Tiberi.
Is this our first cast together?
This is our first cast.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and I think that this is one of the more interesting matchups we could have drawn, and I want to see what the depth of these teams are, because so many new players, this is going to be an absolute banger.
Certainly is, as we are going to meet the teams in shortly, but not quite there just yet, gents. And again, I think much like yesterday, just so much uncertainty moving into this matchup, because we thought EVOs weren't going to be too good, and boy, were we proved wrong.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think this is going to be another question of depth of regions. Like, how deep is the LMS now? Because, you know, AHQ, J-Team, G-Rex has come out of nowhere, but the Flash Wolves have always reigned supreme, and we'll see whether that is due to the rest of the region getting weaker or the fact that they've remained strong.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do, but Pastry, I think it's time to meet the team.
Certainly is. On that note, let's welcome the competitors taking to the stage today. On the blue side, it is Flash Wolves. In the top lane, Hanabi. In the jungle, Moojin. In mid, Maple. AD carry, Betty. Support, SwordArt. Their coach, Warhorse. And their sub-jungler, Morning. On the other side of the rift, their opponents, it's Gambit Esports. In the top, PVPStejos. In the jungle, the legend, Diamondprox. In mid lane, Kira. Their AD, Lodik. Support, Edward. Coach Atramains, and their sub-jungler, Segimitsu. Once again, let's hear it for our competitors today. And boys, the next thing on the agenda is Champ Select, and boy am I excited what these two teams are going at. One of the most creative teams of the play-in stage so far, and a team we haven't seen play yet.
Exactly. 2 patches ago is when we last saw the Flash Wolves play on 8.6. They definitely had a lot of priority in things like Xayah, Ezreal, Braum was a big bottom lane pick for them. But just like we saw from EVOs, you never really know what they've prepared. They've now had a lot of time to watch Gambit play and adapt to some of these strategies. But you can say the same for Gambit. They played 5 different champions over 6 games.
And that's what I was going to say. Maybe if you drew another team, not Gambit, then you would have actual preparation to go for. But how do you prepare for a Karthus Nocturne comp that was designed to attack bottom lane? Like, you know that Kira's going to play Anivia, sure, but he just seems to pick it regardless of what you want to take to Summoner's Rift. So I think these are areas that Flash Wolves can potentially look to attack in game 1 and 2, but the meta of this series will be incredibly interesting.
One of the big things is I feel like you cannot afford to give away Kai'Sa to either one of these AD carries. Lodik, the young rookie, has really been stepping up on the playing stage, especially in the hands of those champions. But Betty, we know mechanically he is very strong, and I imagine that if you give it to him, he's going to have a good performance.
And not to mention, it kind of suits that gameplay that the Flash Wolves like to bring out. They like to be a little bit more lane dominant, but they want SwordArt to be able to leave a little bit. And if Betty can just farm up to the 2-3 item mark, we've seen that when Flash Wolves get to that mid game, they explode, they rip open games, and they win very quickly.
Well, we are going to get into the draft for game number 1. We'll see what these two teams have in store. Flash Wolves on the blue side for the first one, Gambit over on the red, and first things first, respect is given. Anivia banned by the Flash Wolves.
I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Kira, in team fights, he looks exceptional on the champion. Going for the slightly more different build in terms of maxing the W first rather than the Q to have the utilization of the walls and the zone control definitely shows a lot of respect and expertise towards Kira.
And so much of the current style of League of Legends reintroduced champions that no longer rely on gap close. We're looking at Olaf, we're looking at Sion, Skarner, Trundle, all of these champions, and it really does fit the Anivia wheelhouse. So the fact that Kira is a legacy player of this champion and it has a fantastic spot in the current meta, I think it's one of those ones that if you don't want to play against it, it's kind of the free ban.
I also feel like looking at some of the bans from Gambit right now, we've seen the early ban onto the Skarner. Now, when you look at the champions that Moojin is typically preferred, it is things like the Sejuani and the Jarvan. And in his finals, he played a lot of Skarner, but then defaulted to the Kha'Zix. So Gambit might be trying to put Moojin onto the Kha'Zix, or maybe they want to look to take it away from him and see what else he has available in his playbook.
And again, the metagame has just shifted so much since people have had tape on the Flash Wolves, so it can certainly be tough to navigate as GP and Ezreal will also get taken away by the Flash Wolves. Alistar there for Gambit, and last but not least, it is Sejuani, so still taking a note from the last games they saw.
Yeah, it's absolutely important to acknowledge the fact that Moojin's champion pool has been the area they hit, and I think the reason behind that is not only is he a rookie, but he is responsible, especially throughout that final series, of going towards Maple's lane. So we have to continue to track whether this does put him onto a non-gank heavy jungler.
So kind of all these things fell out. We're talking about some bans, and turns out Rakan and Kai'Sa have been traded, which were pretty much mainstay red side bans for most of the play-in.
And initially I was thinking, oh, Caitlyn, Morgana, they make a lot of sense, but with the priority for Gambit to ban away the junglers, a lot of these strong power picks that we've typically been seeing throughout the play-in stages have been left available. So I would look to think that Gambit would either go for a Thresh or a Morgana on the next rotation to make sure that they have a decent matchup into the Rosaya Rakan that Flash Wolves have drafted.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a little bit strange to go to Morgana in my opinion. It will be great late game, but throughout the laning phase, you're still going to have the potential all in. So I think that you have to go fire with fire. I would love to see a Thresh come out of Edward here, and for him to step up to the plate, look to be actively playmaking, because we know that is the style that SwordArt wants to be playing, especially on something like Rakan.
And things have just kind of been closed out. Kha'Zix is the selection from Moojin, with a few junglers banned away and Trundle taken. And it does feel like Edward is trending towards a more aggressive lane support. We've seen a decent amount of Braum, but Thresh will be great as well.
And with how squishy this comp is, I would be really interested to see if Maple defaults back to something like Galio, something that has been tapped down time and time again, but he has shown within the LMS, because I'm looking down the lineup and they are going to be able to start these fights. They will have backline access, but without the CC, it's going to be difficult.
And I feel like something that we saw from Gambit during the play-ins was that when Lodik was on something that wasn't an Ezreal, this team loved to play through bot. So already they're reading the expectation that Galio will be taken off the board. And I feel like Ornn is going to be a big priority now for Gambit, because Flash Wolves, Hanabi, a very young player on the team, a brand new rookie to the legacy of Flash Wolves. One of the big things that he played during the regular season was Ornn and Gangplank. By already banning away the Gangplank and needing a follow-up engage to the Rakan, I feel like Ornn becomes the next value thing.
But then they banned it. So clearly respecting the power on the other side for Stejos as well. There's Rise banned away from Maple on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I just have a look at what's left available for Flash Wolves, and it seems that they need tanks in areas that you can't necessarily get them. Potentially they're going to be defaulting to something like a Sion, which isn't great, into the Trundle. Potentially Maokai, the other tank that we've seen. This is going to be difficult for the Flash Wolves to navigate.
I feel like right now Gambit are just looking for an engage. Sion in my head would make the most sense on their draft right now, but they may choose to wait and go for a Maokai a little bit later on, which is one of the big comfort picks for Stejos, and then they can just look to get themselves the mid laner later on.
And look at you two, there's the Maokai for Gambit Esports, as Flash Wolves have a lot of tough choices really to make here in their last two picks of the draft. Cho'Gath, another one that we've seen here and then. We'll see if that's the pick they want here for Hanabi.
So I feel like Cho'Gath is, in terms of the matchup, a fine pick. But again, outside of the Rakan, you don't really have that much engage or that much of a front line. So I wonder if Flash Wolves will just go for some staple damage in something like an Azir or a Cassio. So that way they can have good Baron setups in the later game.
Yeah, I also wouldn't mind to see even potentially something like the Rise and just heavily put Maple... Oh, banned, actually. Yeah, wow, God.
They would have liked it too, I think.
Yeah, so Cassiopeia is probably your best bet. Karma doesn't tick that box for me at all, because I was like, you have to pull this comp apart somehow, and that is not how you pull a comp apart.
That is Karma, though, the last pick for Flash Wolves, so we'll see what Kira has as his final pick. I mean, it's kind of like a pick to Vladimir, perhaps. So I agree, I don't really like it either. So we'll see what Gambit have. They are giving Kira a counter pick on what should be quite the hot matchup here in mid.
I think the Cassio makes the most sense here. I really like it into the Karma as well. You can gain a lot of priority in terms of the 1 versus 1. I feel like it gives you a lot of team fight power as well, and it synergizes very nicely with the comp that they've already drafted.
Absolutely, and so much of the Flash Wolves legacy was built around Kai'Sa, Maple, 2v2 taking over the map, SwordArt looking for engages. Cassiopeia wins majority of 2v2s if you can bring any form of CC with your jungler, and right now when you have a look at Cassio going into Karma Kha'Zix, like that is literally a suicide gang on the way.
I'm just, right now I feel like Gambit, their team composition definitely gears more towards the scaling aspect. One of the big things we were talking about in our prep spawn was that Gambit seem to succeed the most when they just have straightforward 5v5 team comps, because this team loves to play around Baron, especially when you get to the 20-25 minute mark. That becomes the big focus of this team. And when we saw them play things like the Fiora, they kept trying to team fight with it, and they couldn't properly execute upon that kind of a draft.
Yeah, absolutely, and I talk about it all the time. It's all good to come up with these creative drafts, but at the end of the day, ease of execution earns you bonus points. And when you have a look at things like Trundle and Maokai, the ease of execution is there. You can attack frontline. The Trundle ultimate is going to strip it through. You've got 2 very big hyper carries that will be able to get backline access as the fights start to break down and deteriorate. So I absolutely love what Gambit has put together. In a big game for some of your new players, this is going to be a comp that they would be very experienced with.
Now for Flash Wolves though, they do have a lot of early winning lanes. Xayah, Rakan, always going to be strong. And when you have a Kha'Zix to back it up, looking to play through bot, I feel is the big win condition that Flash Wolves need to find. Because when you have the Karma, you have good early push, Cho'Gath into the Maokai as well, you should have pressure on that lane. So you have 3 lanes in which you can gain that priority, and Moojin just needs to be active. He is the individual that we're looking at to facilitate the early leads for Flash Wolves.
In some ways, it does feel like the gauntlet has been thrown down by Flash Wolves, saying, all right, we'll give you Kai'Sa, let's see what you got. But Gambit have talked about their preparation all tournament long. They have not stopped practicing since they qualified for this, so should be quite the best of 5 to kick things off onto Summoner's Rift for game number 1.
And we see, once again, just a default start. And I think this kind of gameplay is what we're going to see out of Flash Wolves. You already talked about it, but pushing lanes into vision, into priority, for Moojin to be able to get into the enemy jungle. And I think that when you have a look at it, all of the lanes at this stage will be there at least for the early stages. So Diamond needs to show his savviness, needs to show that veteran status. We will complementing his counter ganks on the likes of the Zac, the Trundle, and the Olaf during the play-in stage. I think this is a game where he needs to be able to dodge the Kha'Zix, because if he ever gets a Karma there in his back pocket, Diamond can be shut down early.
And I'm looking at some of the early vision that has been set up. It feels like the Gambit, they're not too focused on trying to figure out where Moojin is starting. Expectations are that they will look to play through bot side. However, you would imagine that full early clears will be the main priority for both these junglers. And then once they hit that level 4 mark, that's where we should start to see a little bit more jungle interaction and where they want to try and find those early leads.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see both of the lanes actually joining relatively late. Leashless jungle starts coming through. One of the strengths of both these junglers is they don't necessarily need all that much help.
Oh, this could be trouble though. Actually, it's Betty maybe going to get turned back around. The stun lands in, and we're going to try and make the play. They flashed it, a double flash forward, and the rookie's going to grab first blood.
Right at the very beginning of the game, Gambit, they might get another.
Going in for SwordArt as well, but no plasma proc this time.
And I said if there's a player to watch on the Gambit lineup, it's going to be Lodik. They gave him the best champion in his role. Eddie goes in nice and aggressive. And I mean, that is a nightmare start for the Flash Wolves.
That is the worst possible start. Our whole narrative coming into the draft is you have to get a lead in the 2 versus 2. Lodik sidesteps, SwordArt engage, and then Gambit's bot lane just go, oh, well, Betty's by himself now. He doesn't have any kind of peel. We're going all in, and the punish was beautiful.
And this is something that we saw a lot. You know, the double W start out of Xayah and Rakan. How do you navigate it? Do you flash aggressively? Do you have to burn summoner spells? That was just a sidestep. That was just clutch. That is ice water running through his veins at that stage.
And before the lane had barely started, that is was a big old bagel in Betty's CS column for a while. Now finally starting to pick some up as the lane crashes in. But that is about the best start this young AD carry could ask for.
And to think about it, Lodik, this guy, he came onto the team like during the end of the regular season for Gambit. He is a complete rookie. He's still in school. This guy, expectations were so low, especially when Gambit found so much success with blasting in their own league as well, to come out on the international stage and have such a good play-in, so then against the Flash Wolves, start off the game with a first blood. you couldn't be feeling any more confident than that.
Well, you can see junglers now weaving around after that. Some mishap in the bot lane. Hanabi there onto Xayah again. Cho'Gath very good in a lot of these times of matchups, but Diamond back down the bot side for more food. Knockup's going to land onto Lodik, but Eggman wants it. SwordArt, no flash, but does zip away with the E.
And this is a thing about Rakan that will suit SwordArt so well. He wants to play aggressively, will go in, but the ability for Rakan to also be able to scoot out of danger means that now they get vision on where Trundle is, and we said so much of this early game, at least from the Kha'Zix perspective, is going to be getting those tells on what side of the map Trundle has been able to get towards and being able to shut it down.
Let's see how it kind of develops. The SwordArt maybe actually caught here again. Long dash range, so no over-aggression there from Gambit.
Now, one of the big things here, or that play was important for the Flash Wolves because Lodik has a lot of gold that he wants to spend right now that he's not being allowed to because of the interaction that SwordArt is playing. Look, 1,200 gold is what he's currently sitting on, and the longer that Flash Wolves can delay it, the more opportunities they have to just try and mitigate that lead as much as possible, so that ideally when Flash Wolves come back to lane after the first base, it's not as bad as it potentially could be.
Again, though, SwordArt going back in a great double knockup. Lodik getting ignited. This might be the counterplay that the Flash Wolves need. Betty wants it, but he doesn't have a flash, and Lodik's going to live through the ignite as well.
Absolutely, but they will crash the wave afterwards, so even though they don't get the ultimate reward, still being able to bully it out, and it's exactly from what you talked to. Actually, Moojin wants it.
Edward says no, he read the play, but now he's getting a little too low. SwordArt going to dive back in under the turret for it, and Moojin collects a kill.
Good guys support Edward. Sacrifices his life to guarantee the survival of his AD carry. That allows Lodik to go back to base, spend some of his gold, but it will mean the Flash Wolves get a bit of pressure back down in the bottom lane.
Yeah, absolutely, and Moojin just picking his mark. This is a guy that doesn't necessarily actually, Maple wants something in the mid lane.
Yeah, out of mana there for Kira. Tough stuff for the Cassio, but holds onto the summoner spells.
Yeah, so let's go back to that thought. Moojin, not the highest jungle proximity jungler coming into MSI, was known a little bit more for his farm-heavy gameplay. However, in the finals, did start to show that he was going more towards that mid lane, more towards the bottom lane. And Kai'Sa, as a player, the shoes that this guy has to fill was a hugely aggressive jungle. Wanted to get in the lanes early, and there was this massive debate. Was it Kai'Sa's team? Was it Maple's team? And now Moojin has to be able to come in and show that he can also have impact.
And fortunately for Moojin, he was able to pick up a bit of action down towards the bottom half after what was a great engage from the Flash Wolves. And again, this all came down to the fact that they stopped that early base. Gambit couldn't spend that gold, which means that the 2v2 was still relatively even in terms of experience. They were able to make that play, and they were able to find themselves a kill.
Well, Moojin looking good so far on that Kha'Zix. As you mentioned, Vedia, certainly a pick he is known for, continuing to stalk through the jungle, get down some vision, although Gambit now have placed some control wards to try and defend from a lot of where Kha'Zix is going again. After that bot side play, it feels like Moojin really spread across the map and he's got information, and the bot lane still balanced pretty precariously, but SwordArt again, gonna get stunned the ignite. Well, he's back up for Rogue, but he didn't use it. The root though still lands in. Lodik, I think, made a bit of a misstep, and now gonna try and fight it out. He burns a heal, he wants the kill, but he's not gonna be able to get it. The heal in response, and Betty gets the next kill.
Absolutely, you can see that Gambit did not want to fight that because the duo lane of Moojin and Maple from the mid were rotating down the river very quickly, and there was just no way they would be able to get out or trade. In the end, Lodik, even burning summoner spells, did get one back in response, but that is a very aggressive play.
Initially, you can see here that the engagement comes down onto Lodik, right? So they get a good chunk of damage down onto SwordArt. Then with the root, they feel that confident enough to go for the re-engage. Edward recognizes, okay, there are two people coming bot, Lodik's gonna die. But then he sees, oh, maybe I can get a kill onto SwordArt. But then he gets the heal from his Q on top of the heal from the enemy AD carry. And it ends up just being a trade of summoner spells, but Flash Wolves get another kill on the bottom.
And I mean, SwordArt said in the opening tease that he hopes this is an aggressive game. That's the style of League of Legends he likes to play. Well, I think it's more than fair to say, in the bottom lane at least so far, these guys have been trading back and forward. And it is actually the veterans of Betty and SwordArt that are now starting to take a little bit of that lead.
Well, looks like, again, Moojin been putting a lot of work in early. Diamond, though, is going to spot him. Burns the ulti. Diamond really wants to get something done here, but a good lead from Moojin. Gets himself out safely.
You can see there was just no way they can fight that. Mid lane being pushed in, top lane being pushed in. The rotation from the solo laners was always going to be there quicker from Kira.
You know, we talked a little bit about Moojin. You bring him up earlier, Spawn, in terms of the difference that we saw from his regular season performance from his finals. Typically, he wasn't known for being that hyper-aggressive early-game jungler, but that kind of shifted in the finals, and a lot of his time was spent hanging around the mid lane, and then he would group up with his mid laner and then bring that action down to the bottom lane, and it's a lot of what we're seeing so far in this game. Even after the early deficit the Flash Wolves found themselves in, with their confident playing, with the willingness to try and be proactive, they found advantages back. They now sit at a CS lead, and everything seems to be back in their favor.
And when you have a look at the makeup of this roster, when you have Maple in the mid lane, SwordArt as a support, the jungle proximity just makes so much sense. Hanabi, who we haven't really talked about, he just really needs to stay top lane, scale up, and be a team fight presence. The mid lane and support duo of the Flash Wolves are so much of their playmaking support expertise.
Well, Moojin's League IQ really kicking in once again, moves in and just scoops up the blue buff that Kira so thoughtfully leashed for him. Again, lots of presence of mind, really strong, intelligent play from Moojin has made a lot of these plays convert early, and Flash Wolves are going to try and use that advantage to take the first Drake.
You know, and it's just thanks to this vision that they had set up around the blue buff on Gambit's side of the map, because they're aware that Diamondprox, he currently is on the bot side of his jungle. Kira has just burned all of his mana trying to get the blue buff. This enables Flash Wolves to get a completely free Drake.
Absolutely, the power points were also there. Maple able to get some additional ranks. You know, you've got level 6 reached on your Xayah, and your Rakan makes the team fight so much nicer at that stage of the game. And Diamondprox had already used his ulti, so that wasn't going to be available. So the window capitalized on, and a Mountain Drake picked up. This is something that the Flash Wolves during the regular season didn't have the highest priority on Dragons.
But if it's free, well,
I mean, why not?
The setup's just been so good so far, and again, the gold has tipped back in favor of the Flash Wolves. Not by much, to be fair, but equalizing that first blood gold about 300-400 up. As we see the lane's going to dissipate. Again, Gambit, they are known to kind of fall behind sometimes, but they're expecting, if the lead holds not too bad for them, we're expecting a spike kind of back towards the 20-25 minute mark.
Absolutely. And now, Ved, we've talked about this a lot. We see that the large gold percentage is going to be on Maple, but he's playing something like a Karma. I know not necessarily your favorite pick coming into the tournament. What is it that you dislike about the champion? People say it gives you kind of that free priority because of the empowered Q. Like, what isn't it that you don't like about it?
I mean, I feel like the champion offers a lot of value in terms of priority, because typically you see a lot of early banner. So you just banner up the cannon minion, you instantly have a difficult lane if you're the Cassio, and you also can set up someone like a Xayah to do a lot of damage in the late game. But I feel like it just puts more of an emphasis on your other playmakers, and that means that if anything goes wrong, like, I don't know, dying at level 1, it could be pretty bad.
So sneaky though for Moojin. Again, Diamond, right place, right time. I don't know if he's got enough time. A good double stun is not going to be enough as Moojin leaps back over to get the kill.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that Kira was so aware of where SwordArt was because he was clearing out vision on the bottom side of the map that it allowed Moojin to sneak in from the top side and get on top of Kira before anything was really there. No immediate flash means he falls down.
You know, and while I might not be a fan of the Karma, one of the great things that she is very good at is setting up for high damage junglers. So Moojin, he was just lying in wait, and Maple, he does what he's been doing all of this lane phase so far. Walk up with the W, land it against the Cassio, even flashes in to secure the route in case he tries to flash away. He has the shield for the speed up, and then all you need from Moojin is the dash.
Yeah, and my apologies. Kira actually didn't have flash, so that gank was pretty much free as soon as Maple was in range, wasn't able to create that distance that you require on the tether. And this is something that it's a very different look for Maple. We're used to seeing him play Cassiopeia, Azir, Ryze.
LeBlanc,
historically, LeBlanc, Zed, Echo, all of the big damage impacts, but now putting some faith into Betty, an AD carry that necessarily hasn't shown up on international stages, and looking to give him all the power to carry in this game.
And transferring some of that to Moojin as well, who's bearing some of the early game responsibility on the Kha'Zix, looking so good so far. Warrior and Moby Boots done, and just this clinicalness of this man's play, how precise he has been in this first 12 minutes has really impressed me.
Now the thing here is for Flash Wolves, we talked a lot about the differences in the draft, and we talked about how we kind of preferred Gambit's draft overall because of the things that it offered you in the later stages of the game, and it kind of put Flash Wolves in this situation where they needed to get advantages early. And after dropping first blood in the bot lane, you'd think, this isn't really how you want to start your game, but fortunately they've been able to turn it around, and now they've found a bit of an early gold lead. They still need to keep that momentum going, and they need to really secure that bot tier 1. And I imagine that if we look down at the health bar of that tower, it is starting to get low. And you can see it's about 60% of its health left, and you would imagine that Flash Wolves, they may even look to use their teleport to make a play down here, but this tower is going to be their main focus over the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, especially given the fact Banner of Command picked up for both of them as SwordArt, potentially a little bit too aggressive. No, we'll be able to get out. Cho'Gath can just eat that, drop his own banner, and there really is no way for them to deal with it. So Xayah, he knows that. He does the right thing. He goes mid lane with it.
Yep, time to banner somewhere else, but Moojin also here. Control Ward is going to spot him, but not really any damage they can do with a Cassio and 2 melee champions. So Moojin will swoop in. He'll get the gold from the cannon and say, sorry, Maple, but you weren't getting it anyway.
Hanabi dropped his top lane as well, so now that window that you were speaking about, Vedius, is completely on the table. It's going to take Xayah so much time. He used some of his top lane priority to get that first move go mid lane. But I think you're right. I think that, you know, with all of the vision being set up bottom, this is potentially where it's going to be. And actually, even though he used it, I can't find his banner minion, so it's like...
I would imagine that it was killed by the dematerializer by Stejos before he headed down to the mid lane. He thought, hey, you've already used your banner, maybe I can use this as an opportunity to go mid and shut that down, but unfortunately they couldn't really find much off the back of it, didn't lose very much either. So Gambit, for the time being, the deficit that they're at, kind of expected when you look at the comps, but they do always have that scaling option available with the Cassio and the Kai'Sa. They want to avoid all-ins for the time being, especially when you look at the difference in items of a BF sword versus the recurve bow. Definitely would go in favor of Betty and SwordArt at this point in time.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say absolutely, and so much of the pressure therefore becomes on Edward, because if you're standing on top of your AD carry, if you ever get charged, knocked up, you can't get the shield up in time. This is such a hard lane to respond to.
Ah, that is why he went down to the mid lane. Makes a lot more sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, you can see 35 seconds on the next Mountain Drake, so Flash was continuing pretty measured, but just very confident pace of play. Again, we haven't seen this team in quite a while. Have always dominated domestically, but so far in this game, just playing in a very slow, calculated League of Legends and just kind of showing off a lot of their experience more than anything else.
And let's talk about why that domestic dominance doesn't seem to mean as much. Actually, we're going to have some action mid lane, so we'll talk about that later.
Moojin getting frisky once again, but everyone backing away. I would too from the 2-0 Kha'Zix.
Yeah, so when you have a look at a team like AHQ, potentially, no, let's not.
He's being sneaky.
When you have a look at a team like AHQ,
yes,
no longer have their legendary mid laners, you know, the roster has been separated. It's still got Ziv as well as their bottom lane in Arn and Elvis, but they've dropped off. I think they finished 5th or 6th this time around. When you have a look at someone like J-Team, who had such a good couple of splits in a row, now they've fallen off. They finished 4th. This Flash Wolves lineup is the only of the top lineups that have been able to maintain any semblance of core. And even in that regard, they lost out on Stake, they lost out on Kai'Sa. That's why when we give them credit for being the best team in the region, it does seem like the region has begun to go backwards in terms of talent, with the LPL starting to, you know, look towards the LMS as a legitimate area to be able to pick up superstar players.
I mean, it's very true. And Kai'Sa, he's already secured a spot towards MSI, making it alongside RNG, and it's going to be very exciting to potentially see him play up against Flash Wolves if they can make it that far, because, as you rightly said, the relative skill of the Flash Wolves is always something that's under debate, because sometimes they come into international tournaments and they're known as the Korean killers and they get all these upsets and they have these fantastic performances, whereas other times they end up losing to teams of an equivalent skill level to Gambit, and you never really know what kind of a performance that you're going to get.
Absolutely, you don't even, like, that's the team, you don't even know what level of performance you're going to get out of the players. MMD burst onto the scene, everyone said he's high elo career, this is the guy that's going to be able to take on Ziv in the top lane in the LMS region. Honestly, was very underwhelming, at least in international performances. Then you've got people like NL, who domestically was so relevant for such a long time. Ultimately, they traded him out in favor of Betty. This is a team that has had to play with their roster over and over again to try and look for those 5 successful pieces to make it work.
Well, I'll let you know in a few more games, because still quite a lot to go in just this first one. Mountain Drake 2 did get secured though by the Flash Wolves, who again are just kind of scaling up slowly in this game. Perhaps the worry, though, is that should favor Gambit. Again, this is a team that has had a small gold lead, but still been able to come back, and you can see items are starting to get bought up as well.
Yeah, my main concern for Flash Wolves right now is that bot tower is still alive. They haven't been able to move Betty and SwordArt around and utilize the strength of this duo. The fact that Lodik and Edward have been able to hold off the siege for this long, and that Flash Wolves haven't really tried to set up any kind of TP plays, but I say that, they're going to secure themselves the top tower instead.
Yeah, that first banner minion did a lot of work, and now Stejos actually going to be in a bit of trouble, going to get ruptured up. Now going to get potentially taken down. Diamond here to answer, but the ult out from Xayah. Going to try and lock up the Cho'Gath. Probably not the target they're after.
Yeah, unfortunately, Xayah was just Otherwise, they would have been able to hold him there and wail down on him with repetitive CC. However, first turret, once again, from a jungler just showing into a lane and pushing it down.
I'm surprised because I was expecting this to happen bot side. I was expecting the Kha'Zix and the Cho to try and be proactive towards that side of the map, but Cho'Gath into Maokai, you do have that ability to push. We talked a little bit about it coming out into the game, and it turns out that they've now been able to secure top tower along with this Rift Herald. And when you compare, like, Gambit have not tried to contest any of these neutral objectives. They've now given up 2 Drakes, they've given up a Rift Herald, and they haven't even tried to fight. Sure, they have scaling, but you can't afford to give all these things away for free, because then the deficit that you find yourself in, you'll struggle to come back from.
Yeah, and this seems to be too much of a good thing. Gambit came in, they said, we're going to pick a scaling team fight comp because we know that Flashwoods do like to play the game a little bit slow throughout the early game, and then they accelerate as they start picking up items. So they said, we can get a comp to do that as well. Flash Wolves, however, have kind of ignored the rules of engagement. And now with a Cho'Gath, as well as 2 Mountain Dragons, Baron is going to become incredibly well. And we said they might struggle to generate team fights. Well, if you can force people to come to Baron and you have yourself a Rakan, team fights become very easy to begin to start.
And Gambit have been the first Baron team in a lot of ways so far in the play. And so again, Flash Wolves just exercising a lot of control here in this early game, continuing to slowly grow their lead. They're up to 2,000 or so as the game ticks on. Moojin still very active, has those kills, has an early Executioner's calling after that Warrior plus the Dirk, and now Maple going to get donated over the blue buff. But there's not really safe places. Hanabi is going to check it out, but Control Ward instantly taken away. It seems like Gambit is starting to get a bit more active now.
Now, Gambit have grouped up as a 5-man unit, and they're using their numbers advantage to try and take down the mid-tier 1. You can see, though, Hanabi on the flank.
Said maybe it's time to start a team fight. Turret goes down in bot side, so they know they're just trying to force in a 5v4. They do get the first turret, but they lose 1, and Betty's still pushing on the bot lane.
I feel like this play makes sense because Gambit are aware bot tower is guaranteed to fall, and they have the Rift Herald in mid, so it's going to be much harder to defend. So rather than just concede mid tower as well as bot, they recognize, okay, Xayah's going to stay bot, we can create numbers advantage, and then we'll at least trade towers in the middle lane.
Absolutely, and now we'll see whether they're able to stop the team fight that's about to come out, because you can see Flash Wolves grouping up around a banner minion, grouping up around the Rift Herald, just want to continue to ride this one as much as they can, and Gambit is trading all of this damage for farm onto their 80 carry.
Ooh, Stayhouse, good flash, gets out from under the Rupture. But still, again, just stuff being taken away, the turret's being taken. Moojin again goes back in to take the blue buff. Flash Wolves are just kind of draining Gambit of resources on their half of the map.
Exactly that, Flash Wolves are just playing very calm, calculated League of Legends right now. They took top tower, they then took bot, and then through the Rift Herald, they secured themselves mid. They've gotten all the other side objectives in the meanwhile, and as they've gained more ground, they've stolen away the enemy jungle. And this is the next few steps, because you then look to gain vision control in the enemy jungle, you steal everything away, and that's when Baron becomes a big priority. And we already talked about it, Xayah. You have the Karma to empower her as well. Looking like she's going for an early Athenes, but then the Cho'Gath and Kha'Zix too. Like, this is a decent Baron-taking team. And with the double mountain, as you were talking about, Spawn, like, Gambit have to be very afraid of a potential early Baron.
Absolutely, and when you haven't even taken bottom lane tier 1, you have limited time of bouncing waves from top to bottom before it just reverses and comes back with a vengeance. Yeah. Makes it very hard to be able to calculate the correct window, because there's not many games in professional League of Legends where they're already setting up around Baron 22 minutes in with double mountain, and you haven't even touched their bottom lane turret.
I don't think the calm will last long, however. Gambit are not usually a team to go out without a fight. They are gearing up again to that big team fight. Flash Wolves, though, can certainly execute in those spots, and this vision is looking so good for the Flash Wolves as they push in and just sweep it out, because you know a Baron is coming in just a few minutes.
I feel like Gambit are just waiting for one more item. They want Lodik to, I would imagine, either get himself the Infinity Edge up next, or maybe he goes for something like the Essence Reaver. You have so many variations with your builds on the Kai'Sa, but Kira likely to go for something like the Liandry's or the Void Staff. And once those are finished, that is when Gambit will say, okay, we're good to fight now, we're ready. And they just have to hold on until that point, because Flash Wolves, they should be more than happy to try and force a fight.
And that is the secret to scaling comps, exactly what you just said. How little can we seed before we have our items? They're actually looking for a play here onto Maple.
Pop the Righteous Glory, looking for Maple, but Maple runs away. Now SwordArt going to look for the counter engage. Betty also here, firing some feathers into Diamondprox. Not so tanky right now on the Trundle. Looks like Cloud Drake was the thing that got their attention, but Flash was already back to try and take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's not an objective right now that Gambit really care all that much about. They're going to use this time to clear out some vision, regain control over the Baron area, because they know that if they give up their Cloud Drake, nothing in the game changes apart from some scaling from the Elder. However, if they give over this area of the map, if they have to face check it, the game is well and truly done.
See if they overcommitted on the left side, but looks like not so, as Flash Wolves do dart back towards the right-hand side of the map. Both teams very mid-centric right now. Again, defending the big purple one that's on everyone's mind.
So, I mean, the problem for Gambit right now is, ooh, they could get engaged on.
Diamond actually going to be the target. They're going to try and maybe counter-engage, but he gets knocked around the bounce house. SwordArt, though, dipping away, and Diamond actually lived through the assault. Lodik waiting for his moment with the killer instinct, and Flash Wolves are getting their flashes forth. Lodik goes in, finds the kill with the Hanabi, and that's the first tank down. Betty also grounded. Huge miasma, forced to flash out.
You can see Moojin trying to look for the re-engage, wants Diamond, but this is a problem. If you do not take down Trundle, if you don't take down Maokai, so much inbuilt sustain in this team comp, and they can just continue to fight forever.
This is the first good fight for Gambit, but Flash Wolves, it looks like they're after a little bit more.
Should be okay. Kira defends Xayah as SwordArt once again looks for the engage.
You can see during that team fight, Flash Wolves would have wanted to get someone towards that bottom lane. There's now a huge creep wave crashing, and that just denies so much gold. You can see what was a 3,500 gold lead, now back to 2 just from better map positioning from Gambit.
And the funny thing is, if you're Flash Wolves, it's actually better to not engage in that situation, because Gambit were losing a lot of farm. This big wave started all the way out from underneath their turret, and it had just slowly worked its way through 3 waves of the Flash Wolves that no one from Gambit had picked up. So if Flash Wolves put all that gold and experience onto Hanabi, he now has a level over the Cho'Gath. You have that advantage. But it doesn't get picked up. Instead, they look to force a fight in mid.
Absolutely, and when we see how this happens, it's Diamond falling to 10% HP, but being able to get the ultimate off, and he just becomes so tanky and gets so much back. And then you're trying to chew through a front line of what is a full tank Maokai, a Braum, as well as a Trundle, with the damage threats just free hitting on your tanks who are trying to flee. At this stage of the game, Cassiopeia just starting to ramp up in that DPS, and they weren't able to go with it.
And one of the advantages of the Karma is when the team fight started to go south, you do have that great ability to disengage. And it wasn't like that Flash Wolves weren't doing any damage, they just couldn't quite secure that kill thanks to good positioning from Gambit and a great turn.
And this is the difference between, you know, a tank support such as a Braum that has those things built into the kit versus SwordArt, who is an initiation tool, but certainly not the tankiest member on Summoner's Rift. So the damage is much stickier when it starts to hit Flash Wolves. You know, Kha'Zix as opposed to Trundle, the Rakan versus the Braum. One error from this comp and everyone explodes.
Well, you can see Xayah's almost got the ball out of Atari, his banner minion. Not quite enough to help him out, and Hanabi does defend it, but still lots of pressure building here in mid. Gambit was smart to take that center turret first because they know they can at least force to contest for this Baron. Good 4-man slow there by Moojin. Knock up follows. SwordArt goes back into the Diamond. Always the target of Lodik around the side. He's on to Betty, who lets the ultimate out. The Fetters are there. A good journey is there from the Cho. But Kira, he's taken down Maple. That's a support mid laner down. Edward, happy to be traded away as Kira grabs himself a double. Now Lodik, killer instinct on, takes down SwordArt. Gambit's team fighting will not be stopped.
Absolutely. You can see again, Eddie, the absolute hero, jumps in front of his tank top laner, able to put up the shield nice and early in that, and just mitigated so much of the damage that will come out. Ended up falling, but was like a Superman at the start of that fight.
And now Gambit have their eyes on the Baron. Moojin is alive with Betty. Gambit have to be so careful around this objective.
No smite for Moojin, though. It's a couple seconds away, and I don't think he's going to make it in time. Kira is going to try and cut him off. The Blascon actually does get him out. He doesn't even have the smite, and Diamondprox rings true. Takes down the Baron, and now Moojin getting chased by Kira.
And Gambit find everything that they want. They built themselves a team fight composition. They outplay Flash Wolves in the fight, and with the Baron, they have now regained control over the game.
Yeah. And you can see that this is a team that is playing slow and weren't able to accelerate when they needed to. We talked about the big advantages they built. They weren't able to get priority over the Baron area. They gave up too much of their vision for free. When they fought to take it back, Gambit were ready and out-execute them in those fights.
I'm also just surprised by, given how much control Flash Wolves had over the map, they haven't utilized it. We can get to that in a second. Look, again, the engage goes on to Trundle. Kira and Lodik are just sitting on the back line with Edward, Stejos, and Diamond on the front. Lodik can reposition how he likes, and they just melt through this. When the tank is Sonya's, that means that your pro line is no longer there, and it becomes a 5v4. The Gambit can then just melt through.
And they're just not that tanky at this stage of the game, is the unfortunate reality of the situation. You see, once again, damage numbers are comparable but it is the members of the Flash Wolves that are falling down.
Gambit, no inner team fight. It's more about the right target sometimes here. It looks like a counterfight being initiated here by the Flash Wolves. Gambit looking to turn tail as Kira was bot side trying to get some gold back. Gold about within 1,000. If that turret goes down, it'll pretty much equalize. And Gambit with the Baron know they need to apply pressure. This is where they always build their leads. They must do it now.
Now, I want to see this difference from Gambit because Flash will spend a lot of time just grouping mid. And Gambit with the Baron, they need to be utilizing more than just that. Get priority over mid, gain control over enemy jungle, and then rotate between bot and mid to secure these tier 2s.
And they also need to show the ability to start a team fight because so far, Flash Wolves have run at them, and the counter engages have been on point. But one thing that I saw, and I know that you were looking at as well, Betty, is their inability to create very aggressive, proactive plays when they had windows to go for it.
Well, again, Gambit do take a turret, so the gold now in their favor as they look to push it even further. 120 left on this Baron trying to start a siege on the bot inhibitor turret.
Thing is, they need to be able to push these other waves too. They need to split this Flash Wolves lineup apart and use the fact that they have ability to engage rather than giving Flash Wolves an opportunity. Because if you group up as a 5-man and SwordArt lands a 5-man ulti, that's where things start to look bad for Gambit. So Flash Wolves in this 5v5 can still hold out.
The reality of the situation is if Xayah isn't willing to go under the turret, the wave clear is still going to be there for the Flash Wolves. And at this stage of the game, they are not that far ahead. So you have to be able to drop your banner minions, be able to create pressure throughout the map, try and split up the initiation tools from Flash Wolves. One mistake at this stage of the game, especially with all the shutdowns being accrued, could turn it back.
Gambit showed kind of at the end of the qualification into this stage that they're not that willing to pull the trigger all the time. But SwordArt getting an instinct on Xayah, sets it up, and SwordArt zips away. The W isn't going to follow up, but he had enough shield still. The fight on the other front is out. Hanabi, property Stoneblader's Diamond just gets feasted on, but still the Cho'Gath is going to go down. Lodik has the damage. Betty, though, going to try and make a heroic 1v4. He's caught the miasma. He pops out the ult. He needs to pull the batters back, but Xayah also not that tanky. Kira almost gets blown up, but again, Edward with the heroic Unbreakable saves his teammates.
This is what we were talking about, though. Grouped up as a 5-man unit, Flash Wolves can still fight. It was two separate skirmishes that were going on. Gambit found SwordArt out of position, but Flash Wolves found Diamond. And now with the Baron buff running out, Flash Wolves can regain a bit of control, maybe even secure this Drake.
Absolutely, and when you have 3 Mountain Drakes now being built up and the gold lead is once again back to even, this game is still on the brink, and I thought that pick was going to be game-changing because they got the one initiation tool that we've spoken about time and again. SwordArt off the CC being able to jump in with the Kai'Sa was caught out of position, had to burn Cleanse, Flash, and Ulti before the teamfight begun. But I think they got greedy here, prioritizing the full tank Cho'Gath. He just eats it.
I mean, I can understand trying to get through the front line, right? But trying to do it underneath the tower when you have Betty and Maple just wailing on you from the side, it became so easy for Flash Wolves to shut down the front line, not even lose a member. You know, I misspoke earlier thinking the SwordArt ended up going down, but Gambit, they end up getting pushed back. They still have control of the game. They still found a good amount of towers, but right now, I just feel like what's happening is both these teams are grouping up and they're running at each other when they don't necessarily need to. Well, if you're Flash Wolves, that's kind of what you want to avoid because Gambit, they just want to team fight.
And they want to team fight when you're initiating onto them. They want to have the counter punch because we've seen that their success is off the back end of over-aggression from SwordArt, the inability to blow up one of the primary carriers, and Edward is just waiting for it every single time.
Well, on the note of carries, both Lodik and Betty are really scaling up. 3 items plus a QSS for both of them.
It is important to note that this is a stage of the game where Flash Wolves do generally start to grab massive advantages. You know, we're 30 minutes into the game now. Their major carries have the 3 items. And once again, we can see they are the team that is able to shove out their waves and get access to vision around the Baron area, around the Drake area, time and time again. Whilst Gambit look like they're winning the fights, still equal in turrets, 4 Drakes to nothing, and all of the control around Baron.
At the end of the day, you have to win the game as well. So it looks like Baron will be back up on the table in a minute 15. Flash Wolves will do it even faster now with the Mountain that they effectively took from Gambit after they kind of lost that engage. So no casualties on either side, but losing another Drake and giving Flash Wolves a 4th in a game that looks like it's going long could certainly be something you'll regret later.
Looking forward to seeing how these next few fights play out and how these teams towards setting up around Baron. It is in a minute's time. Flash Wolves do have priority over mid, and Cho'Gath, after pushing out bot, will be able to join his team faster than Lodik and Edward will. You can see these lane assignments probably not optimal when your TP player is the one in the mid lane rather than your wave player. Will allow Flash Wolves to get into the tower, and that gold gap just closes.
Gambit, though, still posturing for a fight here in mid. Flash Wolves will not be deterred. Again, both teams know that mid is very important to have pushed out when Baron is on the line in 25 seconds.
I just love the fact that they are just grouping up in mid-stages now, getting collapsed
Yeah, caught again. Maybe a little too much there with the face. SwordArt on the back with Moojin looking to make a big flame play happen. Kira there with the ulti ready to go, but SwordArt gets a 4-man knock. As Moojin dive into the back of the fight, still no one from Gambit down just yet, but I think it's only a matter of time. Hanabi can smell it. He wants it, but he's aggressive. Tries to pull the feathers through. Everybody gets blown up. It's 2 kills there, including Lodik, slain by Betty.
Absolute. On the back end of that team fight, the huge flank came out of SwordArt. That was Mata-esque. He just goes on a mission through the jungle and manages to get the 4-man knocker.
And that was the ideal setup for the Flash Wolves because they bought enough time for Diamond to run out of his ultimate, Stejos to be chunked through by Betty. And now Flash Wolves with 5 members have their eyes on the Nexus.
And they've already got a banner of command minion there as well, Patri. This could be the last fight.
3v5 right now as Gambit struggle to defend their Nexus. First turret is looking to go down. Betty, so confident here with the Karma in his back pocket. Level 16, just dishing it out. Hanabi goes under the turret. Might be okay, though, and I think Flash Wolves have realized that it's time to pull away.
Short-range carries into Cassiopeia is just so hard to hit the turrets. You can see they do get chased out of the base. However, with 5 members still available, this is either going to be a team fight or Baron falling down for Flash.
There's the TP flank from Stejos. He does have his ulti available.
Trying to do one better than Moojin and SwordArt in that last flank. Flash Wolves, I think, have to read that they want to try and get this. There's the ult. They're going to try and collapse throw Betty. He doesn't have his ulti. He doesn't have his flash. They're going to try and chase him down. There's Lodik running in with the killer instinct with the ulti. Does come back up in time still. Betty gets shut down by Edward. Gambit in a 5v4 around Baron.
The carry is dead for Flash Wolves. They do have the... Oh, TP unavailable for Hanabi. Gambit now on the Baron. Keep your eyes on Moojin.
Cho'Gath around here as well, but like you said, he's a little too late. Moojin going to try and make a steal happen, but they're trying to sniff him out. He's going to make it into the pit if he can try. He needs to time out well. He's so low on health. Let's go! Moojin steals the Baron away from Gambit.
Oh my word! Moojin comes up huge for the Flash Wolves and keeps them in this game.
And you can see already there are creeps in the base, so SwordArt starts a fight.
Again, Hanabi gets to get onto Kira. SwordArt makes the play. Kills the Gambit mid laner. As Moojin started it on. Now it's time to run for Gambit. They need to go back to their base, defend from the PVPStejos in a 1v3. It's going to take a while to kill him, but I think he's about to get cut down.
And if Stejos dies here, it is going to be a 4v5 inside the base because members of the Flash Wolves will be up and available. You can see he is trying to live for as long as possible, but ultimately he will fall.
And they start recalling. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to buy some time and cancel the backs. Again, it's going to take a while, but he's going to die eventually. Stejos is making him really work for it, though. Here on the Maokai, dodges the rupture, gets 750 health back from the Sap Magic Slap. He does it again, but he finally is slain. Betty cuts him down.
Now there's a TP in the middle lane. Looks like that will come out from the Rakan. They're looking to get the push, and with the Baron available, Flash Wolves, they might want to try and end it now.
He lived for so long that Kira has respawned. What a clutch play from the top laner of Gambit. Now 30 seconds, they have to be able to hold on. And this is just, you love to see it.
Yeah, but now Gambit, they did everything they could with the miasma. They hoped that Moojin wouldn't be able to jump over. I feel like Stejos should have just stayed on top of Moojin, but he walks around the miasma, gets the jump over, and secures himself the steal. And now the Elder going to go in favor of the 4 Drake Flash Wolves as well.
And all of a sudden, short-range AD carry with 6 Mountain Drakes doesn't really care how many times he hits a turret because it's probably falling on the first. Betty is completed 6 items. He just needs the upgrade of the last Whisper. Monstrous Game 1 performance.
Almost there, and Moojin steals not only entertaining, but Pentakill and Baron Steel promotions are back for MSI 2018 with that one, as Moojin has doubled the chance of legendary and esports skins and mystery items to the end of play-in. So get him in now before the game ends, because it's looking close. Flash Wolves tearing down the bot lane, trying to crack another inhib.
Here comes Stejos looking for an engage onto an Elder Drake team.
Yep. Bad news bears, they did take the Elder in the replay. Flash was happy to be patient.
Well, even worse news was the fact that he actually just twisted advance to creep. Betty's shield is huge!
Again, we talk about Maple, it's not a big carry, but the Karma is doing more than enough work to try and close out this game.
Late game value of the Karma coming in clutch right now. Flash will secure themselves a second in here. Will Gambit go for the fight?
The bait, though, I think might be Hanabi. Betty gets out, pops the QSS. Again, the front side is getting shoved up. Gambit need to find something. Lodik pumps the killer into with the heals, and the shields are just too much. He burns the ult and Stayhouse will get taken down. Hanabi in the backline almost takes down Lodik. Gambit are fighting with their backs towards the Nexus. Kai'Sa finally slain, and Gambit will be pushed all the way back to their fountain as the Flashers will take the first Nexus in what should be one hell of a series.
And it was a slow game, but the control over neutral objectives is ultimately what allows Flash Wolves to pick up the Elder Drake, to pick up the Baron, and to be able to slowly but surely kind of strangle Gambit out of that game.
I feel like my biggest criticism of this game was neither of these teams were using their side lanes at all. It was so much grouping and just so much trying to fight each other that when Flash was trying to fight Gambit, it was Gambit who were in the better position. Then when Gambit had the Baron, they were on the enemy base. Rather than trying to utilize 2 minions or 2 minion waves, they just kept grouping mid and they gave Flash Wolves an opportunity to find the fight.
We're just spoiled by Banner of Command.
It's
Side
true.
wave control has become drop a banner, group up with your team. You know, the channel of teleport sometimes is too long, but I certainly agree this is one of those games that you could have looked at the side lanes, especially as a Cassiopeia player, being able to attack it a little bit further.
But you've also got to look at some of the highlight moments, right? Like the fact that Moojin was able to find the steal. It could have been so big for Gambit finding that pick onto Betty from the flank. The fact that you had that SwordArt flank coming into the mid lane engage. So many individual performers really stepping up for their team. But unfortunately for Gambit, it was that final Baron steal that ended up costing them the game.
Yeah, not only that, we checked in with the rookies and said, how are they going to perform? Well, first blood to one and a Baron steal goes over to the other. I think it's very fair to say that they are prepared for this best of 5. And I mean, first punch has been exchanged. We'll see how the next one goes.
Flash Wolves with one game, but a win nonetheless. For more on how the Flash Wolves won that game, let's send it over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much. A pastry time. Now that is a game 1 in a best of 5 that you like to see. Team fights, left, right, and center. Action all over the map. However, not too much specifically early. I do want to take a look at picks and bans first off. We talked a lot about experience, about the rookies, how will they do, and we see that both Lodik and Moojin were gifted comfort picks going into game 1.
Yeah, especially I just love the fact that Gambit were able to, right from the get-go on red side, leave 3 picks open and give themselves 2 incredibly strong ones. The picks I'm talking about, the Kai'Sa, Trundle, and Rakan.
Yeah.
They definitely gifted off the Rakan, so they had the Xayah Rakan going off the flash rolls, but they were able to get 2 very strong picks from the Trundle and Kai'Sa. I thought that worked really well for them.
And that's what I really liked, is the fact that they made it so if you take Kai'Sa, they're going to take Rakan Trundle. So no matter what, they get 2 of these power picks, and they obviously seem to want the Trundle so that they could burst through tanks. But the fact they got the Kai'Sa, and it did well at the beginning, was really good for them. But overall, for composition, I actually really like how Gambit traded. But I think the Flash Wolves with 3 winning lanes, you give them too much priority. I think they should have won the early game harder. That's how they got all the Drakes. But the fact that that first blood went over is kind of, I think, what slowed them down and made it so the composition was playing from behind for a while.
Yeah, definitely the first blood. Also, I thought that Gambit played it incredibly well when the vision controlled bottom side. But let's talk about the first blood first, because this was really beautiful coming out of Lodik.
Yeah, and I actually think Lodik's dive down, or his dodge down, is what threw SwordArt off, because SwordArt actually lost vision of that bush when he W'd in. So he went into Fog of War, and Lodik was playing the vision game there.
Yeah.
When you asked the question about how will the rookies do, how will Lodik do, he immediately said, I am confident.
Yeah.
We are going to take this trade. However, a bit later, it turned around. He was too aggressive. I remember that he flashed in, and then he healed, but it wasn't enough, and he ended up dying in the 2v2 when he went too far. So it was a bit of both. He did have a strong first game, and then I want to look at the other team as well. How did Moojin do? Because he was a kind of a question mark.
Moojin was incredibly strong around the priority lanes that you were referring to, because he recognized bottom lane was a major point of attack that he was going to go towards. This is the answer back on the kill on towards Edwards. But remember, a lot of this was getting priority mid lane. So this gank mid was incredibly strong just so they can utilize that pressure, head towards the bottom lane. So he was doing an incredible job to be able to get the game going for himself still.
And then the steal on the Baron. This was just, look at the bottom. There's no smite for Diamondprox. So they tried to do it, and Gambit, I mean, all pun, you know, not intended here, but Gambit took a Gambit on that Baron and said, we're going to do it even though Smite is down. And that's what I don't like about that play, because they got too desperate in a game where I thought they were in an okay position, and then they just gave it up with the Baron going over.
Well, our questions was answers in terms of these new guys. They did well in their first game, but when we look at the game holistically, as you guys touched on, Gambit had a good team fighting composition, and that has been their strength also in the LCL and the play-in group stage, but they let Flash Wolves get a bit too far ahead until the moment that they show what their composition is made of.
Yeah, that's the thing. You talked about the fact that Flash Wolves getting an early lead with their composition, and I was really worried that Flash Wolves were going to fall through because of the team fight strength from Gambit. It was just really barreling down on them. The Maokai coming forward, the space that it was creating for Lodik to push upwards. So at this point, I was literally talking to Zyrene saying that this composition, this game is over. Gambit has the team fights. But it was somehow, some way, Flash Wolves were able to get it back from, I guess, the dragons that they were being able to stack.
Yeah, literally, Raz looked at me and he goes, I don't know how Flash Wolves win this. And I was like, it's probably an Elder Dragon with all the with all the, the elemental drakes they have. That's probably how they win the game. Like, of course, I'm going for like the one that's almost impossible to have happen or have them stay in the game long enough for that, but they are able to do it because of that steal we just saw.
And credit where credit is due, the fact that they picked up all those dragons and they had great objective control, which is not something we see from the Flash Wolves early game, at least in the LMS. They usually get ahead through kills. Now they had kills and they had the objectives, and then when you get to the late game, you have everything you need.
Yeah, I think it was just the fact that they had all 3 winning lanes. When you have winning lanes, you can put the vision down. You should get the dragons, and I think it's Gambit when they draft that late game composition, it's them seeding the early game.
Yes.
You expect to go down 2,000 to 3,000 gold. You expect to give up the first 2 to 3 drakes, and then you have to play from that deficit. And you saw they were able to do it, and it was the steal
They
that
had
mattered.
it in their own hands.
That's why it's interesting seeing this game one immediately, the fact that Gambit wanted to play their own style that they had in the LCL, because they've done their research. They understand that it's Flash Wolves that have had the incredible forward percentage within their own region, that they do end up having a lot of these winning lanes. So they're like, okay, well, we'll play it back. One thing that I really did like about it, and I was kind of inching towards that a little earlier on, was that when vision control was starting to get clear out towards bottom lane, and I thought that the bottom lane tower was going to be completely strangled out, it was PVPStejos moving from the top lane to the mid lane, getting mid lane priority is the mid lane pressure.
Yeah, with the banner.
Exactly, and so they had to move that mid lane, or at least pressure from bottom lane to mid, to lengthen out the game. So it looks like they've done a lot of research in terms of how to elongate the game for the compositions to come through. It didn't work out, but I thought that Gambit should try and do that in game 2 because it worked. It was looking good. It's just the team fights didn't work out well.
Yeah, it was looking good, but despite that preparation, it was the Flash Wolves 33 minutes in that pick up 2 kills in a team fight brought to you by Ace or Predator, and that will be the last nail in the coffin, unfortunately for Gambit.
Yeah, this was the one where it started off on the wrong foot, where it was the catch, and then SwordArt got the flank, the ulti in, he catches 4 people here in his knockup, and this is where Edward, I believe his shield is already down, so when Betty gets to walk forward here, he gets to just spray all the feathers, and then Edward gets to bring it back up, and he gets right past him, and oh,
Betty did 8,000 damage in that fight, just as an aside.
Wow. In that fight alone, that's insane, actually. When you see like 7,000, like that guy carried the fight, 8,000 right there in a 33-minute fight, we're not full items or anything, that's a lot.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I was wondering how the Edge of Night was going to come through from the Kha'Zix, or at least how it was going to play out in that fight. And it was legitimately Lodik being incredibly afraid, not from the feathers that were coming through, so the CC was going to come through at the end. It was mostly Kha'Zix moving up, not being able to get CC'd unlocked, and then, of course, the flank coming through from the support. So there were so many things that was literally threatening his life.
Yeah.
And there was no way for them to play out that team fight properly.
Well, overall, if we step back from the game and the expectations that we had beforehand of Flash Wolves being the favorite for Raz, Gambit being able to edge Flash Wolves out in the end, what's the general thought? Flash Wolves with this game 1 win, and the way they won it, do they feel more like a favorite to you, or is it closer than you expected?
I actually don't think they're as favored as like we initially thought. Like I think, like I said at the start of the day, I think it is a little more even. I do want to see them with a different composition, because I think that one, you put all your eggs in a single basket of the early game, you do get these objectives, but I think that Gambit played really well in elongating the game, like you said.
I share the sentiment. The only thing now I'm surprised about how aggressive Flash Wolves are now earlier on. So we get to see if that can continue on in the series.
Let's hope so. Flash Wolves came out on top in game 1. We'll see if Gambit can bounce back right after the break.
So sneaky though for Moojin again. Diamond, right place, right time. But I don't think he's got enough time. A good double stun is not going to be enough as Moojin leaps back over to get the kill. Yeah, Diamond actually going to be the target. They're going to try and maybe counter engage, but he gets knocked around the bounce house. SwordArt though dipping away, and Diamond actually lived through the assault. Lodik waiting for his moment with the killer instinct, and Flash Wolves are getting their flashes spot. Lodik goes in, finds the kill to Hanabi. Always the target of Lodik around the side. He's on to Betty, who lets the ultimate out. The Betters are there. A good journey is there for the Cho, but Kira, he's taking down Maple. That's the support mid laner down. Edward happy to be traded away as Kira. No one from Gambit down just yet, but I think it's only a matter of time. Hanabi can smell it. He wants it. Betty is aggressive. Tries to pull the feathers through. Everybody gets blown up. It's 2 kills. They're trying to snip him out. He's going to make it into the pit if he can try. He needs to time out well. He's so low in health. This is Moojin steals the Baron away.
Nice. Nice.
We pushed all the way back to their fountain as the Fighters will take the first Nexus in what should be one hell of a series.
Predator, proud partner and official monitor provider.